decisions that are going to pan out correctly.
Well, this first one wasn't even part of the implication. In the second one, it's just wrong. So it is the case that the decisions they make is unlikely to be successful for any long-term outcome.
And why is that the case?
It comes as a direct result of what it means to be impulsive.
Okay, what do you mean by impulsive here?
To make decisions on spontaneous material conditions.
Okay, does that mean for all actions?
No.
Okay, so if they think out long-term decisions, because there's a distinction between, generally speaking, when someone is impulsive to everyday decisions and impulsive to very big decisions in their lives, right? So when I was granting you the case that these people are going to be more impulsive, I'm talking about in a general sense. Maybe they want to eat something, they're impulsive in terms of deciding that. Maybe they want to go hang out, they're impulsive in terms of deciding that. That doesn't follow now that in terms of long-term decisions, which everyone thinks more about, they're going to be impulsive and unable to make rational choices there.
Well, why would the decision to be with someone be exempt from being an impulsive decision?
It's not about being exempt. It's a category here. There's a big difference between actions that have long-term, how should I phrase this? Long-term consequences and actions that have short-term consequences. When I choose what to eat out today, it has a short-term consequence. I'm just eating, maybe I'm eating chicken, maybe I'm eating something else. When I make a decision about what college I'm going to, even if you ask a 15-year-old, that has a long-term consequence. So they're going to think about it more. So there are two different categories. I don't see why I specified here. When I was granting it, I was talking about the first part where these short-term consequences happens for certain actions, right? That doesn't follow. Now, for long-term decisions, such as relationships, such as your future about your college, or any type of things like that, they're going to be very impulsive there.
So, one, that wasn't my argument. My argument doesn't say that the impulsive decision-making is exclusive to short-term
I know, but I'm making that distinction.
decisions. Wait, let me finish.
Go ahead.
And the second part is, so you say that for decisions that have long-term consequences, ideally the person making the decision would think more about them just as a fact of the decision having more long-term consequences. One, even if that's the case, it doesn't even absolve the idea that the decision can still be irrational or that the decision can still be impulsive fundamentally. And two, you have to actually provide some sort of empirical data for this.
Empirical data for what?
For the claim that 15-year-olds or like people around that age group would exclusively make rational decisions for long-term consequences.
Yeah, it's just going to be my priors there. Look, it's not even about a specific age
Your
group.
priors? Why?
Yeah,
So,
let me finish.
Okay,
It's
go
not
ahead.
even about a specific age group. I want to address the two claims you made. It's not a specific age group. This is just a general thing we observe. We observe that anybody, when they have when they have an action that's going to have long-term consequences, because of that, they're going to think more rationally than an action that does not have long-term consequences. Secondly, when you're talking about that doesn't absolve them from not making rational choices, or it can still be no one denies it can still be the case, right? It can still be the case a 29-year-old who's much older can also make rational and impulsive decisions. We're not talking about can here. Your whole argument is that it's most likely the case, or this is probably going to happen.
Wait, so before I address the second part, just quickly repeat and do it a bit more concisely. What was the first point you made?
Yeah, the first part I said, responding to why it's going to be the case that these people are going to think more rationally about long-term decisions. It's just that we observe it throughout
Okay,
our life.
I remember now.
Priors for this.
Okay.
Secondly, it was about that it's not a can.
No, I got it. I got you.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, we can agree it's the case that when we look at people making decisions about like small things, like what they're gonna eat and what they're gonna do today versus something big like what college they're gonna go, we can agree on a relative comparison. Obviously, they're gonna think more about the bigger decisions because they have more consequences. but that's obviously going to be relative to how much they think about the smaller decisions, and there's no like intersubjective metric here that describes, okay, this person will think for a certain amount of time, or will think and produce a certain amount of rational basis for their decisions. So even if it's the case that they think more often about bigger decisions, doesn't actually provide any information as to whether those decisions are in any way reliable. And the second part you said that we observe it to be the case, but that's just going to be your priors. And well, truthfully, I can just say that we don't, or I don't. And so in general, when we're referencing like just general studies, I can provide some, but generally studies, when they look at long-term data for like big age gaps between like couples, the younger age couple generally has more like negative outcomes. And so I think that's going to be more evidence for the hypothesis that the younger couple or the person who is younger generally makes worse decisions.
I'd have to look at the specific studies you're citing. I've seen stuff that say contrary and seen stuff that disagrees with me, right? So I'd have to see specifically which one you're referring to and how they conduct it. Second, when you say, yes, your priors, I can just disagree. If we fundamentally disagree that we observe people making better choices when they have larger consequences, that's fine. We're just not going to go anywhere with the conversation then. And then secondly, my point of bringing up that distinction was just to say that your initial argument doesn't follow, right? Because you'd have to make an argument why a 15-year-old, when they're making a bigger choice, it's going to follow that they're likely going to make irrational choices, or they wouldn't have something where we wouldn't have a system where we can pan out if these choices are going to be good or bad.
I think that's because you think I'm claiming that it applies for every single choice when I'm not. So I'm just making an inductive case as to why society should be against.
I understand you're trying to make an inductive case. What I'm saying is I disagree with the inference you're getting there. You're trying to say that, look, these people are more impulsive, therefore it's going to vary like slightly. I know you said more than that, right? But these people are more impulsive, therefore it's going to follow that it's generally, or it's unlikely to be the case that these choices pan out in the future, right? What I'm saying is I don't see why they're impulsive and why they make rational choices above a certain threshold where it's an issue, specifically for bigger choices, or specifically for bigger actions that have higher consequences.
Well, yeah, but this is what we
Here's
discussed.
my impulsive take. You're a pedophile, dude, whether you like it or not.
Interesting people.
We discussed about this earlier, and I think we both agreed that people people take longer time to process bigger decisions. But my kind of contention with that is I would just need some sort of like actual empirical basis for like them being at a certain rational threshold to make that decision. Like if you can say,
Go ahead.
Like if you can say, okay, the 15-year-old, we know that majority of 15-year-olds will make good decisions for like X, like going to college or picking like a certain subject to study, etc. And this provides us some implication to the conclusion that, okay, big decisions are going to be more rational, or at least rational enough when compared to like impulsive decisions, and therefore my argument doesn't actually follow.
Well, sure, if I was making a counterclaim to it, but I'm saying that there's no basis for the argument to begin with. But secondly, I'm sure that I'm sure that there's things that showcase a distinction between bigger consequences, actions, and smaller. I just don't have studies off the top of my head to pull them up. But if that's it, then
I got you. Well, I gotta go for your thought, yeah.
no problem, brother. Thank you for coming up.